Yes, okay, let's call the meeting to order, please.
Joe Becker. Here. Peter Wissenbach. Here. Jack Ergen.
Here.
Lisa Dean. Here. Dave Pemble.
Here.
Russ Roloff. Kelsey Waits. Here. And Superintendent Collins.
Here.
All right. I would like to ask for a motion to approve the agenda, please.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? Motion passes. I would like a motion to approve the minutes for the February 20th, 2019 regular board meeting.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. I would like a motion to approve the bills payable.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion here? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right. Number 5, good news.
Yeah, really good news. As the board knows, academic state champions. Congratulations. Unfortunately, I've heard it's not due to the tutoring skills of our head coach, but they're able to tutor him on a few things in life now that they're the academic state champions. But on behalf of the community, because this is aired, we would like you to come on up, Chad, with I think you have 3 guys with you that are part of that.
Yes.
Come on up front where you can be on TV. We might have to refocus for you. Yeah, that's right. But just share a little bit about the team this season, and then of course we're guessing some pretty good student athletes to work with when they're academic state champions.
Yeah, I don't know how much detail I guess you'd like me to go into, but as far as the academic state championship goes, every year teams can submit their teams, and the entire teams, at least the entire section roster, the GPA of the group. And this year we had the highest team GPA in Class 4A in the state of Minnesota. 50 of the 64 teams submitted. Sometimes coaches don't submit their teams for whatever reason. But this year in Class 4A, 50 of the teams did, and with a 3.68 GPA. We had the highest team GPA in the state. We have 3 4.0 students on the roster, and the lowest GPA in the group was at 3.2 something or other. So collectively a very intelligent group of young men.
And just introduce these guys, and they can share. Are they all seniors or juniors? Or I know one of them's a senior for sure.
I've got 2 seniors and 1 junior here with us today. So Sully Levos and Brian Nielsen, and junior Devin Harrelson.
And the 2 seniors, do you know where you're headed next year, what you're going to do? Why don't you just share a little bit of what your interests are right now in school and where you're maybe headed if you do know?
I'm headed to NDSU to study marketing.
Okay.
I haven't officially decided yet, but I'll probably go to Drake University for actuarial science, maybe St. Thomas.
Okay. And have you even thought about it yet?
Something to do with science, something like that.
Well, as a board, and I know that Coach Feichman, I know that Trent Hansen preaches this too. We love student athletes who compete well in the classroom. They compete basketball, try to be more than just one sport too, and I know that you guys all represent that. So I was at the state basketball tournament when it was announced, and people were texting me, "Hey Collins, your team's not the state champion, but they are. What's up?" But anyway, that was proud for me to be getting those texts for what you guys do on the court and also what you do off the court. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. And you're welcome to exit stage right, or
I'm gonna go home and have supper.
I was going to say you guys are very smart. You're leaving then.
All right.
Oh,
And the
it's
next
me.
item, the next item
Yeah.
on good news.
Terry, oh yeah, another great news. We survived a winter in Minnesota.
Oh, I
Yeah.
do say that. April
Yeah.
snow day.
That's
For
true.
the past.
We'll still survive it, but
I'd
I'd like to invite up. I know Terry Johnson is here, and he's brought some individuals with him who drive for the bus company. Of course, I'd like them up front too, so that we can have them front and center.
Hi, good. Hi. Hi.
Joe, you coming up? Okay.
I was like,
We do all the work.
what's that about?
No.
We'll give this to you then.
Yep.
But you're not going to be able to buy a pizza with it or anything. But on behalf of the Hastings School District and the school board, we appreciate what you do in the safety for our students. We appreciate the friendly smile when kids get on your buses, because you're the first one they see and you're the last one they see, and they really need that positive image. And we also know what a white knuckle year it was. When I talked to Terry at 4 o'clock in the morning and we're deciding, whether or not to have school for that day, I know that he's thinking of our students, but he's also thinking of you. I told Terry that I had driven bus at one time and I quit because to go down a road in the winter with 40 to 50 students behind you, it was just way too much pressure when you have those lives. So we just wanted to bring you here and recognize, we know you do it every year, but we know that this year was wow. It was something else, and very stressful, and probably put in a few extra hours because the routes maybe took a little bit longer. But Terry, Joe, we just really appreciate it, and we appreciate the service that we get. I've shared on the radio too that I know that Terry and the bus company, when it's really cold out, they have an extra bus running. It's
Start 'em.
yeah, ready to
Below zero.
ready to go in case we need to have a bus that's in trouble. And so we really appreciate that service too. And we know that that comes at an extra cost too, that we don't get charged for. So we thank that too. So I don't know if you have anything that you want to share, but
I just want to say this is Chris Schaefer. He's going to finish his 25th school year. His claim to fame so far is he hasn't been stuck yet where he needed to come home.
Or would not get.
This is Melissa Stolberg. She just is in her second year. But she did an afternoon when we had that 10 inches of snow and you couldn't see from here to the other end of the building. And I'm out driving around trying to help buses having them follow me in my pickup. And she made it back. And I think we got the last kids home that night at 5:45. It was unbelievable. So.
and she didn't quit.
She was smiling. So, and this is Joe Haney. He is the Chief Operating Officer for Hastings Bus Company, Minnesota Coaches.
So thank you so much for the service that you provide every year. Terry, you've been just great to work with. And we also know that it's great people that continue to be in a job that not everybody gets to see you, but we appreciate it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And again, if you want to stay for an exciting school board.
Good luck.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much, you guys. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm going to let Jen go first.
Okay, I think we're up to item 6, the superintendent's report, and the first item is the state of the district report.
I'm going to skip that. That is on the agenda first, but I know that Jen is here. So Jen Reichel, she was on schedule at one of the meetings that I think it was a snow shortened meeting. Definitely one of our goals every year, but we've really focused in on it even more this year is literacy, literacy specifically K3. And I'll just let Jen take it away. Jen?
Yay! Thanks for having me tonight to talk about elementary literacy. I have just a couple of slides for us, and I invite whatever questions you have at any point in time. So I want to talk a little bit about our PD journey that has led to this robust literacy initiative we have happening currently at our elementary schools, all of them. So in the fall of the 17-18 school year, all 3 elementary principals, our elementary coordinator, Mary Pash, and I went to this literacy academy through the Metro Elementary School Principals Association. And while we were there, we met 2 wonderful ladies who helped us better understand the scope and sequence of what is a good literacy program, not tied to a product like this is the book that you read, but how we organize our instruction. And they gave us lots and lots of resources about how we can visit our classrooms and really do an in-depth assessment of how things are going instructionally. And as we went through that PD initiative, the 5 of us could not, for the life of us, figure out where do we begin, because there are lots of great practices upon which we can build, and there are a number of things that we can shore up. And in our conversations, we were like, well, we could do this first. Well, that would be good, but this could be even better. And there are people who want to do this. And so we sought some additional help. And so one of the two people who led us through that MESPA Literacy Academy is Bonnie Hauk. And she is now serving as our consultant. And she has come in and she does some professional development on those set aside days. And then we have some work in between our days where teachers are continuing their work through that process. So like I said there, we moved forward with Bonnie and we're super excited. So as we continued that journey, we really dove into collecting some data using what is called the Literacy Classroom Visit. And I'm going to give you two examples. The first one here is pretty generic, and this is just called the Literacy Classroom Visit. And it's the way that we capture what on earth is happening in those amazing literacy lessons. After we gather some data, we make some decisions about what professional development needs to happen, and then we want to go in and check on what's going on following that professional development. And so I have just one piece of what's called the Enhanced Literacy Classroom Visit, which really dives deep into some of the things that our teachers have been learning. So go ahead and take a look at those. So this year we have had in August, in November, in January, and in February, full staff professional development. So we have every kindergarten through grade 4 teacher housed in the McCullough Library, and they're all learning all together. And then in between those times where Bonnie has come to lead professional development with all of the staff, we're working with some teachers who have taken on an additional responsibility as a literacy coach. So they still are full-time classroom teachers, but they're getting some additional work with Bonnie, and their role is during their prep time, before school and after school, to work with teachers to go visit classrooms. So they're building those relationships so we can continue to inspect the great work that's happening as a result of the professional development. So that's our PD journey. Some of the things that we've worked on this year, and I'm not going to tell you everything because really Bonnie has, there's a fire hose of great things that are happening. We started out really looking at the gradual release of responsibility. You may know gradual release as I do, we do, you do. And there's a perception that it has to be I do first, then we do second, and then you do last. And what we have learned, not only through Bonnie, but through some additional resources, is that there's actually 4 steps to gradual release, not 3. And they don't have to go in any one particular order. So when we think about that gradual release, we want teachers to model. Here is how you apply a particular skill. And we're asking teachers not only to do it, but it's like they're opening up their brains and they're talking out loud the things that they're thinking so that kiddos can think about, are those words going on in my head as I'm doing this? So the teacher is the only one talking. And then there's some we do together where the teacher in partnership with the students move from that teacher is the center to we're doing things together. But the step that we haven't always put into place is that we want students to practice together without an adult before they move to that independence. Now sometimes our teachers are finding they'll go from modeling to independent practice in order to figure out what is the additional piece of instruction that we need. So then we might come back to the we do together or pull in small groups, or sometimes we begin with independent practice. So that idea of step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 kind of blew that up, and really is we want to be responsive to the kids that are in front of us. What questions do you have about gradual release?
I just liked, to me, what simplified it when I was in one of the sessions was I do, we do, you do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a good frame of mind for teachers to always remember.
Yep.
I do it, we do it, you do it. So I think that was a good
quick way to remember that. Yep. So the second thing that we worked on this year was that classroom culture, and you'll find that on the LCV, the document that you have in front of you. And along with that, we really focused in on the classroom libraries and the rituals and routines. And when we think about rituals and routines, we know that we have to teach explicitly some expectations that we have with kiddos before we can expect them to do what we want them to do. So for example, we have these amazing classroom libraries, and we want kids to pick books out of those libraries. But in some of our classes, we haven't helped students understand how do they go to the classroom library and find a book that works for them. So our teachers have gone through, they've created amazing anchor charts that you'll find all over classrooms until the kids don't need to reference them anymore. But how do we do that book shopping? Well, we have to open up to the first page and we have to figure out, do I know all the words in the page? Does it look interesting to me? Does it fit the expectations of what I should have in my book bin? Because we want a balance of fiction and nonfiction. So we don't want, a student who loves nonfiction to have only nonfiction in there, and then we forget about the arc of the story. And so we're working on helping kids understand that process, and that's part of those rituals and routines. We had a really quick snippet of instruction on interactive word walls. Most of our classrooms at the elementary have had words on the walls that our kiddos can reference. Bonnie says, let's try and make them interactive. So it's not just they're over there, but how can kids engage with what's going on? So you might find in some of our elementary classrooms that there are cups with popsicle sticks so that the students can take those words back to their desk, and as they're writing, they don't have to walk to that wall and write it down and come back. They can go grab the word and then they can practice with them. So it's just a way to interact. Our teachers have also been invited to think about, we don't want to put all of the words up at the beginning of the year. We want to do some direct instruction, and then they're there as a resource, and then we continue to add. Having said that, our first training wasn't until after most of the teachers had come in on their own time over the summer and put everything up. So we weren't going to ask them, take those word walls down and let's start again. It's, all right, now that you know this, how might you do things differently next year? And how do you interact with this word wall that you have to help kids know what words have we done some direct instruction about? And then the biggest piece that we've been working on is increasing stamina. We want kids to be able to spend more and more time focused on that independent reading, beginning as early as kindergarten. And we know that if we want a kinder to read, well, they're not going to read the words in the book, most of them. So we have to teach them how to hold a book and how to turn the pages and how to make up the stories based on the pictures. The time that they can sustain with their attention on a book, if they have one book in their book bin, is about 12 seconds. So we pack those book bins full of like 15 or 20 books, so they flip through the book, and then they go to the next book, and they flip through that book. And so it's, what are the things that we need to do as we craft our instruction and we organize the materials that we have available to kids that allow them to build that stamina? We can't expect 30 minutes for a fourth grader when they walk through the door, because some of them have had a summer of no reading. So how do we build that? Because the goal is, by the end of the year, 30 minutes. For our primary kids, we're probably going to chunk that out into 2 or 3 pieces and not 30 minutes sustained for a kinder, but we want them to do 30 minutes of independent reading every day. So those are some of the big things that we worked on with the classroom culture, the library, and the rituals and routines. Questions about that? All right, and then the third thing that we've been working on most recently is unpacking standards, creating high quality learning targets, and attaching that performance criteria. I know that you have heard learning targets for years. That's something that the year that I came in, there was the skit with the elementary principals who were singing their learning target song. So that has been something that has been a focus for us, but we haven't had direct instruction with our teachers to help them know what's a meaningful learning target and how do I use that with students so that it's not just a poster on the wall or a picture or I write some things, but that it guides my instruction and it lets students know this is what you're going to show in order for you and me to know that you've met that learning target. One of the great things that Bonnie does as our consultant is she really partners with what things are already in place. So some of the products that our teachers are using now are things that we have already created. So we have the plan, do, reflect is how I've asked our PLCs to work, and she's using that language and those resources. When it comes to unpacking standards, those are things that we had already created, and now she just did more professional development, and we have an expectation that teachers are working through that process. So it's not like because she came in, we abandoned anything that we had done before, we're gonna do it Bonnie's way, and then when she leaves, well, we have to fix it back to the way that it was. She wants to use the resources we have, and then when she leaves and she knows that the goal of having a consultant is she's going to do it, gradual release. We're going to do it together, and then we're going to do it independently so that we don't need a consultant forever, but that we build in the resources internally to make sure that we can train new folks to us. So in addition to those created resources, we've really been focusing on teams of teachers coming together and planning together. And we know that sometimes that's hard. And it's important because each of us brings gifts and talents to the work we do with kids every day. And so to have 4 minds and 4 voices and 4 ideas together is way better than one. And this has given us a structure to do that. So they unpack together. They really look at what does this learning target mean? What does it ask of students when they get to the end of the year? And what are the pit stops along the way to make sure that we're doing instruction and watching them progress toward that end of year target, because that's what the state standards are, is the end of year target, and we can't introduce it once and expect that they're end of year ready. So there are many learning targets or standards where we have to think about what does that look like for in the fall, what does that look like in the winter, and how do we grow to get to that spring proficiency. And then that gets us to common assessments. How are we knowing, what evidence are we collecting from our students to know that they're meeting the expectations that we have? And that's all driven by digging into the standards, knowing what they mean, and really being able to articulate, this is what we're going to learn and do today. So that's been really powerful, important work. Ooh, back up. What questions do you have about that?
How far away are we from common assessments?
We're starting, so it's not we have to go through this process and then common assessments will be there. As we unpack, we're developing those along the way.
All right.
Yep, good question. What else? Okay, so the plan is to have this partnership with Bonnie for 3 years, because we know that good professional development isn't one and done, that we keep coming back to it, and we have to build in enough front-loaded knowledge so that we can sustain and do internally what we need to do to help new folks to our team understand. When you look at the LCV, there's a piece about learning targets and the instruction. There's also whole group instruction, there's small group, how do we help with independent practice? So there's a lot to a literacy block, and the way that she and her partner who wrote their book have really chunked it out, it makes it manageable to say, all right, this is our next step and this is what we can do, without saying, all right, throw out everything you've done with literacy and we're gonna do it this new way, because there's so many good practices already in place. We're just building on those practices. So we're looking at about a 3-year commitment there. And like I said, gradually releasing responsibility to Hastings staff, those coaches who are doing that additional duty. Eventually their role will be to deliver the professional development, because all of the materials that we create, we own. Bonnie says, I will work with your team to create them, and then they're yours. That's part of her consultation fees. That's it. What questions do you have about the Elementary Literacy Initiative?
I don't have a question. I just, as always, it's the person leading it that really, you have to hit that right. And with Mary Pash and the 3 elementary, and I know you're involved too, but I know that you've turned it over to them as well. But with Bonnie, Mary Pash, and the 3 elementary principals, we hit the right person.
Yes.
To come in and help us lead. So I don't know if that was luck or well planned, but
we looked, and you know, there was the choice between the 2 people who presented to us at the MESPA Literacy Academy, and we just felt like there was a greater sense of expertise with Bonnie. And when you meet her, she's no nonsense. Like, she's going to tell you what she believes, and that is partnered with a great, really love and respect for teachers and the work that they do on a day-to-day basis. So she's got that beautiful balance of, this is what you got to do. And I know it's hard, and I know you're working hard. This is what you got to do.
Thank you for continuing to push this
Yeah.
and nudge it, and thank you for coming tonight to share.
Yeah. Hey, can I do one more thing? I know that, so I have one more thing that's not related to literacy. We have, with our American Indian Parent Advisory Committee, we have to do yearly a vote of concurrence or non-concurrence. And our parents have voted concurrence, which means you're doing what you're supposed to do to help our kiddos. And so what we need is to share that with the board, and there needs to be a signature here so I can send that to MDE. Okay? If you have any questions about that tiny little piece, at some point I'll come back and talk about what we're doing with that.
No,
Okay, perfect. Then I'm going to leave
if
that
our
with
parents
you.
are happy, we're happy.
Yes, yep. I have a really great group of parents this year.
How many parents voted?
So I sent it out to our core group because we had a meeting and it was unclear on MDE that it was actually due because there are a number of things with due dates, and then this was kind of buried under there. So I had probably 5 or 6, but those are the ones who consistently show up that says, yes, you're doing what we need you to do. And we're looking for ways to grow our parents. We have an activity night next week, I think next week, and hopefully we're gonna get some more folks to come to that. All right, thank you for your time tonight.
Totally using that gradual release of responsibility with my kids. That's gonna be awesome. I could see that working for mowing the lawn, plowing the driveway. That'll be fantastic.
You will eventually have to sign it here somewhere.
Okay, great.
I'm gonna skip out of order, Scott, because
Okay.
Kyle is here from Wold, and I know that, Kyle, you have a somewhat newborn at home, and they might want to see Dad at some point. So I'm gonna talk about Todd Field a little bit. And when I'm done with Todd Field, I'm gonna talk about the middle school, and then I'll go back to my presentation. So I'm gonna first update you on, it's just an overview about Todd Field. I can't remember my days, but we met with Wold. Jen and I met with Wold this week, and we looked at the bids from Todd Field, and the bids are approximately $700,000 below where the projections were overall. But now remember that that means there's some contingency in there that we still need to maybe upgrade the sound system a little bit, and we've got the storage shed that we don't quite know what we're doing there yet. But still good news overall. But one of the things that Wold has suggested to us is they'd like, rather than accepting it at tonight's meeting, they wanted to wait a while because they do want to meet with the City of Hastings and the Planning Commission, and that's on April 9th. And because one of the things they didn't want to do was have the board award it tonight, give it to the main general contractor, and then they start going to the city for permits, and the city's like, what's this? So we are going to delay that a little bit. What happens then is Wold comes to me and Jen and Jim Huberty and said there's some alternates here. Do you want to accept the wheelchair lift alternate that you put in there? Or not the wheelchair lift, but the handicap lift. Do you want to go with that or not? And so there's some discussion about those things, and then eventually I say yes or no to that. So we are delaying it a little bit. I do believe then that at our April 10th work session, we'll probably turn the first 5 minutes of that into a board meeting so that we can then act on the Todd Field bids, and then Todd Field will start rolling. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Jen or Kyle, do you have anything else really to add on Todd Field? I did get today from MnDOT, as you board members know. We also have some land down there that we have leased from MnDOT, so now that is in the process. MnDOT has moved it up to the next step, where we can have the right to purchase then some of that property rather than lease it where the buildings are going to be. So hopefully that ball keeps rolling too, but Molly's been very good to work with, and I know that Molly has been working very closely with Wold too. So that's it in a nutshell, and we hope that we have a nice spring, and once they get rolling, there's a lot of work to do. So any questions on Todd Field?
Do they know, does the low bidder know they're gonna be doing the work? I mean, just so they don't keep bidding and picture other event?
I'm assuming,
Yeah, we've contacted them, you know, we just contact the low bidder and make sure that they're, you know, comfortable with their bid and comfortable moving forward.
Okay.
Well, good, that is good news, because that's a question I get more and more recently. When are they gonna start on Todd Field?
and again, I appreciate the board on this next item. It's the bid for the middle school. We've had a few balls up in the air. As late as 2 o'clock today, we were still in contact with Wold, and I'll get into some discussion on that, but I'm gonna pass this sheet around for you to look at. And Kyle, you can hop in here at any time too. You know, Kyle is our main, even though there's a team from Wold that works on it, because you can imagine there's mechanical engineer, there's electrical engineer, there's technical engineers, blah, blah, there's engineers. So what happened with the middle school, if you look at the very first item, CM Construction on the day of bid, they had the low bid. And then some alternates that they wanted to discuss with me is what quality of lockers do you want, and what I call alternate one would be the corridor lockers, or what I call the academic lockers. Alternate two would be what type of lockers and quality lockers do you want in your shower locker room. And then bid number 3 was, we had 2 different types of seats in the auditorium. So those were the 3 things that were still up in the air, so to speak. And I had sent out to you in an email as a board that, hey, we got great news, one underneath bid, but that Wold had shared with me that sometimes the bidder looks at it a little bit closely, and Wold gives them the opportunity to say, whoops, I maybe had an error. Well, that did happen. They came back to Wold and said that they're going to have to withdraw their bid, because when they did their calculation, they noticed where the error was at. So that would be motion number 1 that I would like the board to act on, is eventually where we'd have to make a motion saying that we're allowing them to withdraw their bid for the middle school improvements project. I never did ask Wold if we didn't allow them what would happen. I'd sure hate to work with a contractor who they're $500,000 over budget, and they're skimping, and they're trying to save money at the risk of our project. Is that probably what would happen, Kyle?
Yeah, and it was, you know, more on the scale of, you know,
$1.5 million or something,
Yeah.
right?
You're talking about starting off with, you know, a lot of, you know, uphill battles, so not something we would advise.
So we will be recommending that the board allows them to withdraw their bid. So then when you look at the next item, they had a base bid of Corville Construction at a base bid of $21,100,000, and again, that pushed us then right to about where our estimated projected costs were for the middle school. With, of course, contingency, you never know for sure how much asbestos you're going to get into. You never know how many, you know, things that you're going to change, et cetera. So part of that 21.1 is also some contingency there. And so then the question came down, what's the name of the high quality? Is it Norgard lockers?
DeBoard.
DeBoard. Okay, DeBoard. So then it came down to the question of, we did these specs for this high grade locker. And so I'll start with alternate number 2, which are the athletic lockers, are basically the middle school, you know, shower room lockers. And do we go with DeBoard at $53,844 more? or do we go with the next locker and save that 53,000? Wold shared with us at a meeting that almost every school in their shower and locker room does go with the DeBorg locker. And Jim Huberty, our facility and maintenance, definitely wanted the DeBorg locker. The DeBorg lockers are in our high school site. They've stood the test of time. They take a beating. They don't have as much maintenance, et cetera. So in that meeting the other day, we had some discussion back and forth on whether or not we would go with DeBorg for our academic wing. After some lengthy phone conversations today with Wold, after Jim Huberty sitting in, I did reach out to Russ, because I know that Russ and what he does in his line of employment with Wise, he deals a lot with lockers. So I asked him his opinion on some of these different brands of lockers, et cetera. So we had a conversation with that. So there are a lot of phone calls back and forth. In the end, we decided that to accept the alternate, which then saves us $122,000. We found that I believe it's Olympus, right?
Right, we won't know until.
Oh, I shouldn't say that publicly then, because I don't know for sure. But we did decide to go with that quality of locker. It met the same steel gauge as the DeBorg. It met the hinge, the continuous hinge requirement. It met the locking mechanism. So we did decide to go with that alternate, save the money on the academic wing. We also found out that Edina and Wayzata have also just recently put that same locker in their academic wings as well. So motion number 2 then, Deanna's done the mass subtraction there for you, where she's listed out the bid saying that we will accept, one of the alternates, et cetera. If you also look out on the bid for the Corvell construction, we also get a savings of $7,387 on our stadium seating, because their bid was that much, was the differential. So those are the 2 motion items that I and Jen and Jim Huberty are recommending. So to me, we can move into those action items. If there are any other questions, Kyle can help answer them too, and then we'll go back up into my presentation.
All right. So under number 7, action items, I would like a motion to allow CM Construction to withdraw their bid for the middle school improvements project.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion here? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Number 2 under Article 7 is a motion to accept the low base bid submitted by Corvell Construction Incorporated of $21,100,000. Alternate number 1 bid, which is a negative $122,606, and alternate number 3 bid, which is a negative $7,387, for a total bid amount of $20,970,007.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion here? Just a quick recap that the alternate number 1 bid, the negative 122, was the savings reflected on the corridor lockers or the academic wing lockers, and alternate number 3 bid of a negative 7387 was the savings in the auditorium seating. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Pass it along, Kyle, and let's get the craziness started. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Kyle.
On that issue too, is when we met yesterday with Wold, I'll just share a little bit more, is that we've had some vendors who have talked to us about our gymnasium floor, what was spec'd, what wasn't spec'd. Scott and Kyle shared that that's just typical as you're gonna be going through these bid processes, that competitors are gonna say that my floor should have been spec'd, et cetera. And he said there's still time between now and then if we, as a facility committee, wanna listen to that discussion. They plan at some point in the next month of coming and meeting with our fire department, sharing the differences in the gym floors and those types of things. So there are still some things that can be done. Just like Todd Field, there was a question on the sound system or speaker system. And again, you bid it and you spec it at this, and if we feel as a facility committee that it needs to be upgraded to this, we still have some time to do that and work with the contract with that. On this situation, when you're going with 2 different lockers, we wanted to make sure, and that was part of the phone calling to the contractor who had bid it. And that's why he mentioned he didn't know for sure the name, that contractor was comfortable with who those locker companies might be, because they're depending on them to get the lockers here on time and those types of things. And the contractor was comfortable with the potential lockers, et cetera. So going back up to the superintendent report, I just wanted to take some time to share with you. I've been out to every site now. I just want you to hear what I've been saying to all of our employees, and of course, as it's airing on Hastings Community Television, I also like to do that. So I'll just go through this real quick, and if you have any questions. But today I finished the high school, and of course there were a few snow day interruptions, but this started back in February, so some of this is old news to you. But one of the things that our self-funded insurance committee decided, and Lisa sits on it, Scott sits on it, there's 3 or 4 teachers on it, Jen sits on it, a secretary sits on it, a principal sits on it. They said, Tim, we need to get out there and talk more about self-funded. We don't think our employees totally understand it. And so basically, if you look to the left, when we started 5 years ago, there was a risk. We didn't have a penny saved. And what if we had a bad year where Tim was ill, Deanna was ill, Jen was ill, severe ill, and we didn't have the money there, and it exceeded how much we had in our big pot. So we started at a little bit high of putting in $7.5 million. And I share that if you're a single employee, specifically a teacher or an administrator, the district puts all the money in the big pot for you. If you're a family employee and either the teacher or the administrative group, the district puts in 85% and you put in 15%. And we have the $7.5 million, and then Preferred One goes in and takes money out every time we have surgery, office visits, et cetera. And over the years, we've been very fortunate. We were fortunate. It did luck out, and now we have a savings of $4 million off to the side. But every year we re-put money, mainly as a district and an employee sum. And some of this is going to tie into these motion items tonight, to our self-funded. And I said that we as a district just need to educate our employees a little bit better on how to use it. And I used the example of, today I was at the high school and there were probably 80 staff members in there, and I said, how many of you have used online medical service before? And 3 people raised their hand. And I said, that's what we need to educate a little bit better on. An online medical call is $40. A clinic call is $120. A urgent care is $140, and an emergency room is $320. And we're finding out that you can get medication for strep throat or sinus infection, and you don't have to leave your house on a 10-degree below day, and you don't have to go in the clinic where everybody else is sick. And we need to educate on. Now, we're not saying don't ever go into the clinic. I mean, but we're just saying that these are some ways that we can help each other save money in our big pot of money. I also shared that for the first time, our group, our school district, has hired an analytics person. She kind of scares me because her brain only thinks this certain, right? She's a very intelligent young lady. Very intelligent, yes. And it's numbers, and her brain does not think like my brain. But they're able to study. It kind of scares you too. They're able to study all of our information. It's confidential to her. And then she compares our group to other groups in the metro area. And just as an example, I don't know the exact percentages, but she shared with our group that our employees use a chiropractor 40% more of the time than other similar groups in the metro area. And we're like, okay, well, we need to, That's not a bad thing, because if we can get you to the chiropractor so you don't have to have a $200,000 surgery, that saves us money. But it also showed that the males in our group are horrendous at never going to the doctor. Just absolutely horrendous, and that's not good. We want them compared to other groups. And so we need to educate our males, get to the doctor so you don't have a heart attack that not only costs us money, but it's also not good for you. And so that's kind of how we talked about self-funded, and we're going to now be educating our employees more about that to try and control our costs the best as we can, because we all know that health insurance is costly. So talked about that. I just shared with them what you already know about the solar garden, that about 3 years ago I started to look at solar panels on the roof. Farmington had put them on their roof. I knew we were going to be putting a new roof on our high school, but did we want contractors up there walking around? Did we want to insure it? Did we want that responsibility? So then we switched to the solar garden, $80,000 paid to the district, no financial commitment, no insurance or maintenance, $100,000 annual savings, and $2.5 million over 25 years. Again, our employees are all impressed by the fact that we went this direction. They shake their head too, how is this possible? It's just too good to be true. And I said, that's kind of why we stayed away from it. But it's really that the question is, will something better be out there over the next 25 years that could save us more money? And so we talk about that too. So I shared that. Talked about the achievement and integration money that the board needed to, in order to get the $180,000 state of Minnesota money, the board in November had to approve on our levy that we'd go for $70,000. We're applying for it right now. Jen Reichel, who was just here this evening, has just been a workhorse on it. She's filling it out, refilling it out, making changes, getting corrections, making changes again. And it's basically to help with the achievement gap and integration. We are going to partner with the South Washington County School District. That does not mean that we have to do everything with them, but we need to at least talk and listen to what they're doing. They need to listen to what we're doing, and there are times where we can maybe get our students together or our staff together on projects, but it's not like you have to bus every student over there or bus every student back, but you do have to have a partner district. AVID can be paid for by part of this program if you hadn't already had the employees hired. So it was a good time for us, because this year we had just one classroom, and next year we have 2 more, so we can pay for those 2, so there's good timing for that. And then I talked about an equity coordinator that we're seriously considering that. I'm going to talk about that more in our next work session with you as a board. We're going to take we want to take the Native American Indian dollars, which is about $26,000 annually that we get, pair it with some of this money and hire a coordinator that does work on working with our students, working with our teachers, bringing in speakers to give us more training on diversity, ethnicity, equality, et cetera. So that is something I'm going to be talking to you about at our next work session, as we want to get out and advertise for that. You as a board have seen this, and the fact that I share that we've done several scenarios. I scrunched this down, and you saw it even more in depth. But the first line says that if the state of Minnesota gives us 2% each year, we should end this year at about $12.5 million, and then next year we should be at about 12.991, and the following year at about 12.895, and that's with settling all contracts at 1% each year, new money. Then I said, well, what happens in the next line if 1.5% from the state of Minnesota changes a little bit? And then, of course, students. And I share that, I tell board members always, this year here is pretty accurate. This year here is probably 80% accurate. These 2 years are best guesses. Because you can tell if you're off out in here, it really impacts it out in here. And I said, so this is the best news that I've shared as far as it's a balance point in this district since I've been here. And so why is that? Well, there's 3 main, usually we go down $1 million every year. And actually we would have, but we passed our community, thank you, passed a levy that brought in about $1.2 million, so we didn't go backwards that amount of money. And at the same time, we've had back-to-back years for the first time of me ever being here of health insurance at 0%. So when your health insurance is going up 0, you're not adding to your budget deficit. And then the projection of 2%. And our student enrollment right now is at about a 2-year little niche where we're not losing a lot because our freshman class has, I think, 410 students. So that's helping us balance a little bit. So our enrollment for about a 2-year period is going to be about stable. And health insurance and the state of Minnesota kicking in 2%. Other boards know that there were years that state of Minnesota gave us 0 and 0, or they gave us 0 and 1. So those factors all help for a pretty balanced budget. And I share with every site that doesn't mean we still don't look to reduce if we can. We have that responsibility to still look to reduce if we can. Our community expects that. So then the next thing I share, these are typically the greatest impacts on our budget. It's enrollment, it's the health insurance costs, what does state give you, what do you have for an operating levy compared, and then your employee contracts, which we're bargaining right now. I then share that when Kim Fry and I first came here, we hired a group for about $400 to do an enrollment projection for us, and we kind of stole their formula. I won't say stole, we borrowed their formula. And we used that for about 8 years, and then we said, let's check with them again to see if we're on target. So that was 8 years ago, paid another $400. And this year she said, well, it's about another 8 years later, should we check on it again? And these are their numbers. So you can see the kindergarten enrollment is expected to, we're at about 272, this year, and slight decline, and so they're projecting still that our enrollment, but that can change too depending on what type of affordable housing comes in over the next 10 years, what type of mass transit to the metro area comes in, does a big employer come in? Those things can change, but when you look at it, I still say to all of our staff, even in the year 2028, we're going to have about 4,000 students. You're still going to have a lot of opportunities. You have to remember that I graduated from a high school with a total of 120 students, grades 9 through 12. So the opportunities here are still going to be very, very strong 10 years from now. But it does tell the board, this is one of the factors that drives our budget. Keep an eye on it. Keep massaging the size of your district. And don't necessarily take away programs because programs draw kids. I mean, it's not like you don't want to cut programs necessarily either because parents want opportunities for their students. Then the next one, I pulled districts our size because what happens is I think there gets to be a feel that, well, Tim, we've got 12.5 million in our savings account, and it's going to stabilize. And yeah, that's good. We're sitting good, and it's going to stabilize. But I pulled school districts of our size, of about our same students. So all those school districts up there are probably within 500 students above us or 500 students below us, somewhere in there, to see what is their referendum size, what is their referendum authority. And we have a pretty high mortgage or loan from our community. The great news about it is that over time our community has believed in our students, they've believed in our school system, they've listened to the fact that we're continuing to downsize and that we do need this amount of money. Now you have to realize that operating levies, some of those other school districts, they might get QComp dollars. We don't. They might get, I don't want to say what South St. Paul gets for achievement and integration, but I want to say it's almost 3 times what we'd be getting. I mean, so there are some other dollars that they're maybe living on, but that's what they're living on off. They're similar to us in size, and that's what they're living on. So I want to remind people that while the district has a nice nest egg and savings account, we're building that on borrowing from our community. So I share that too. Next one. I just go through some of the next bond projects. I remind them that the middle school wall is coming. It's going to be a project. We're gonna hear some, I don't wanna use the word complaints, because they're gonna be justified, some concerns next year as we're taking 400 students from one section and all the teachers from that section and moving them. And then the next quarter moving another 400 students, and the next quarter moving another 400. It's gonna be a ton of work. And we've started on it already. And I wanna, and I also shared today, I wasn't able to share this at all the sites, that definitely the board, as we've went out and looked at other sites, we're also trying to change our bathrooms and our locker rooms for more privacy. And that was one of the things when Wold was here yesterday. I wanted to make sure before we accepted that middle school bid, I wanted to revisit the locker rooms, shower rooms, and make sure that all the stalls had a door on them and that they were a changing room / shower. And yes, they came back and they said the doors are cut off a foot below and a foot above so that you can look for safety. And that yes, it's 1/3 of it is shower and 2/3 of it is where you can walk in and change. And I think all of us thinking back to our junior high years for sure, know what an awkward feeling that was. And I would argue that even at the high school, it's an awkward feeling. And so I have shared with Wold that I do also want them to look at some of our bathrooms at the high school and middle school specifically. If we do have some money left over on this project, to look at enhancing the privacy issues in those bathrooms and the showers up at the high school as well. So that would take board action from you, but I told them that I at least want it looked at, you know, because right now our showers up at the high school, they're kind of separated, but they don't have the privacy. And so they're looking at that as well. I talked about it, the dean, that we, a dean of students at the middle school, that was part of the bond. Wold lowered their price a little bit so that we could pay for a dean for 1 year so that Joe Haas could be the person meeting. And man, they've been full, already they've been full blast meeting. They've already got some of the lower level cleaned out. They're starting to get semi-trailers lined up because it's right around the corner when we have to start moving. And he's been into that. Talked about Todd Field already, what I shared with you tonight, so I shared that at Todd Field. Oh, up there it is. I talked about structuring the site bathrooms at the middle school and high school for more privacy if we can. And then I just give some, I talk about, and everybody thinks that this was a great idea, that these gates somewhere in here are gonna be electronics from the beginning. We can really bug Deanna. And that there'll be a camera there so that if Scott wants to bring his 3rd grade girls soccer team to Todd Field, we tell him the time, Deanna sets it, it's open, they all walk in here, a camera sees who's walking in, and they can go practice on the field on Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock, and everybody thinks that, wow, that many people are gonna be able to use Todd Field. That's pretty cool. And then I share that the board had a lot of discussion on handicapped accessibility, that it already is handicapped accessible from the top, but we also wanted to try to do something for the bottom, and we are going to do that with a lift. And that the ramp was just too long. It was going to be the biggest, and everybody agrees. Everybody who sees this are like, no, we do not want that ramp. And I said, I don't know what this will look like, but if you picture the current stone steps or cement steps, it'll probably be on the back side, and we'll build some type of stone structure around it to get it to kind of to tie in, and that's right there where you will lift up. And everybody says, thank goodness that you didn't go with the ramp. And everybody agreed that, so a lot of head nodding on the fact that, yeah, if you're gonna open it up to 2nd graders and 4th graders and the community, how would people ever access the handicapped accessibility, especially if some 10-year-old has a broken leg and now they've got to go all the way up there to come all the way down to watch their buddies practice. So that's what I've been showing everybody, and I finally had the final phase on that. So let's hope that we continue to get good bids and that we don't run into a lot of problems, so that we do have some money at the end that we can make some further decisions.
All right. Thanks, Tim. Okay, moving on. We've already covered items 1 and 2. Item number 3, I would like a motion to approve Preferred One as the self-funded health insurance provider for the 2019-2020 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion here? All in favor?
Aye.
Approved, opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Number 4, I would like a motion to approve increasing the premium for self-funded health insurance by 0% for the 2019-2020 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion here?
I would like to point out, and I do sit on the self-funded health insurance committee, that we're all very comfortable with 0% given the amount that's in reserve, held in reserve. But I do think it's important, and this was brought up by our consultant at the last meeting, for everybody at the table to recognize we can't get comfortable at 0%. We can't just keep assuming, oh, it's going to be these little single digits or 0. This 1920, well, actually even the current year that we're in, it's starting to feel like we might dip into that reserve. We might be at just break even or just a little bit into that reserve. And then, and to Tim's point earlier, you know, there's a very sound decision to make the initial premium set at a rate that was conservative, that put us in this good position, in that it's allowed these small to 0 increases. This year we're going to be right at break even. 1920 we will probably be into the reserve. Would be my best case. We're fine with that. We accept it. Everybody should recognize that 0 is not the future beyond that year. So I'm happy that we made the decisions we made, but there will be difficult decisions to make on this coming up.
Excellent points. Thanks, Lisa. I'd just like to add that just for a little clarity about, well, how did we get to a $4 million surplus in there? And really, our advisors are telling us, well, for a district your size and for this type of policy, that you want about a $2.5 to $2.75 million balance there. And that's to pay, if you were to change companies, that's to pay what they call run-out claims, which are, okay, we switch on June 1st, but the claims don't hit the system until July, August, September. That's to pay run-out claims. That's to absorb any of the risk, you know, any of the potential overages that we would have, which are capped, but they're significant. So it's just kind of a best practice to have that there and use that as a bit of a shock absorber so that you're not put into a position, hopefully, of taking a double-digit, you know, increase like that. So early on, I think our rates were geared towards that. We want to be putting, you know, $750,000 to $1 million into our balance there. Now that we're 5 years into it, now we're slowing that down. We're slowing that train down a little bit and saying, okay, now we're in a good position. Take a deep breath, and we're able to take a 0, which is it's claims experience that we've had in the district, and it's just that we have that balance there. So, yeah, I'm with Lisa. I'm completely comfortable with the 0% for this year, but again, it's every year is new, and we hope there's no, you know, big illnesses or issues within the district, obviously, but they certainly can happen. So, and we need to be prepared for that. So I think we're in a great position. Any other comments? All right, I've received a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Number 5, a motion to approve the stop loss increase from Preferred One, single $33.58 to $36.92, family from $84.54 to $92.95 for the 2019-2020 school year.
So
Second.
Any discussion here? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 6, motion to approve the fixed fee bid from Preferred One for the 2019-2020 school year from $22 per employee to $43 per employee with prescription rebates provided to the district. I need a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. And we'll open it up for discussion here, because I think this one does merit some comment.
Yeah, this merits some discussion.
You know, I just want to share that this is new to us. This is new to what we've been doing. And the fact is that, call it the prescription, the companies giving a kickback or giving a rebate, whatever word you want to use. In the past, we never received that. And because somebody has to track that, they have to follow it. There's person power in tracking these rebates, et cetera. But our advisor is telling us that they believe that if we pay the extra to have them track it, we'll get back that money and even a little bit more in rebates. So I just want to be upfront. We think that this will either be a cost neutral, or we'll get so much back in rebates that it'll actually make us some money. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, the difference is Preferred One keeping the rebates,
Or-
and we get a lower per employee rate, or we keep the rebates and we pay a higher per employee rate. And right now, we believe if we were to duplicate this year's numbers and everybody got the same prescriptions and everybody had the same claims, we'd be about $75,000 to the good. But obviously, there's variability there.
So we just want to be upfront about that, but we felt, based off of last year's rebates, that we would have made $75,000. Let's try it next year and see where we're at.
All right, I've received a motion and a second. Any other discussion on this item? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Number 7, motion to approve removing Trust Point and appointing Matrix Trust as the HRA trust account effective July 1st, 2019. I need a motion and a second, please.
Motion.
moved. Second.
Thank you. Discussion on this item, I think, as well.
I think that 2 points to it. Number one, we were having some dissatisfaction, Jen can attest to that, with how TrustPoint was tracking our VIBA account or our dollars in our VIBA accounts. You know, whether Tim Collins had 800 in his VIBA account or whatever. And then we also were hearing from our advisor as well that they had some concerns about TrustPoint, and really that was enough said. When we had our own business office saying, we just haven't had a lot of customer satisfaction there, and our advisor telling us the same thing, we said, let's start looking elsewhere, which we don't like to do because it's a pain. Right, Jen? We don't like to make extra work for our business office, but we said, let's go somewhere else, and we ended up on the Matrix Trust.
Are we at about the same cost?
I think so, aren't we?
It's close. It is a little bit more expensive, but within reason.
Yep.
All right. Any other discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Number 8, I would like a motion to approve the resignation of 9 individuals.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. I'll open it up for discussion. The only discussion I have on this is that for those of you watching, our agendas are posted on the Hastings website if you'd like to get more information about this. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Number 9, a motion to approve leaves for 4 individuals.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on these? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Number 10, a motion to approve the retirement of 2 individuals, and we are pushing 50 years of service between the 2 of them. So, in this case, Kathleen Hansen, our in the vocal music at the high school, and Bonnie Jasicki, English teacher at the middle school. So effective at the end of the year. I need a motion and a second, please.
Motion. Second.
Any other discussion besides a big thank you, thank you, thank you?
Yeah, big thank you. Given a lot of good service to our students.
Yes, they have. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Number 11, a motion to approve the employment of 1 individual. I would like a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item number 8, other business. So our next regular board work session is April 10th, 6 p.m. Will we be here?
Yeah, we'll do it here.
Here in the district office.
Scott, I believe that time moved to 7.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's
to
right.
accommodate.
Oh, thank you.
We're having teacher negotiations prior to that
Okay,
meeting,
so
so we're gonna use a 7 o'clock start
7
time.
p.m. Yep, thank you.
I forgot about that, my bad.
April 16th, 11:50 a.m. is the high school student lunch, and then on April 24th, 6 p.m. is our regular full board meeting again here in this room.
And another one that I forgot about is, I believe April 2nd is our date to go to the Capitol for those who can.
Yeah.
And I'll ask C to send us out another agenda again. And I know that some of you originally, and then it got snowed out.
Yep.
So if you can make it, you can make it, and I'll just toss it out there.
Awesome. I wish I could. All right. Item 9, a motion to close the meeting for an update on negotiations. I would like a motion and a second, please.
Motion. Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And we'll just move next door. It'll only take about 5 or 10 minutes. And then Jen, remember Scott, Lisa, are you going to be around for teacher or for us to meet with you in my office? So in about 10 minutes, we'll come and meet with you for a little bit.
All right, real quick. Opposed, same sign.
Oh.
Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. We are closed.